and he just nailed it when he was challenging. I thought it was Hillary, but I guess it was President Clinton, about the cost that restaurants would have to bear as a result of the mandates and the changes they were going to be making to the healthcare system. And he said, what are we supposed to do? And here he was representing small, not only restaurants, but small businesses everywhere so effectively. And he really became a spokesperson for the people who would be impacted by this law. He was brilliant. He was a brilliant and happy warrior, always. He brought humor, but so much intelligence to the many battles that he was engaged in. Subsequently, Jack Kemp, who I also had worked with for many years, asked Herman to be a member of the Tax Reform Commission, and I worked closely with him as I was executive director of the Commission for Economic Growth and Tax Reform in 1995-96, and he was brilliant there too. He understood business at every level, and it really led to his 999 tax reform plan that.
Good morning and welcome to America's Web Radio. We're doing something a little different, and we're going to be starting a new show, and I'm always delighted when we're doing that. And we haven't even really settled on a name yet, I don't believe, but it's going to be... We've got Stephanie Stuckey, and once I say the name Stuckey, everybody, I wonder how many spoons across the nation happen to drop and say, I know Stuckeys. And we all remember Stuckeys, and it's still going and blowing and doing quite well. And it's the I would say the thing that I think about Stuckeys is as we would travel as family, and as I was growing up, you know, there'd be a Stuckey's and Daddy, can we stop? Daddy, can we stop? And I think that's the memory everybody has of Stuckey's. It seems like you all have so many and do such a service. So welcome to America's Web Radio, Stephanie, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, David. I appreciate being on, and we are trying to figure out a name for the show. We've bantered about a couple of ideas, Stuckey's Memory, Stuckey's Nostalgia, Take a Stuckey Stop. You know, maybe some of your listeners could post suggestions for us as well.
That
We're
would be
open
fun.
to ideas, so send them to us.
Yeah, just send it to General Manager or GM at americaswebradio.com, and we'll go from there. In fact, I bet if we came up with a name from somebody that they could get a card for a free Coke or a free cup of coffee.
Oh, heck no. I just send them some pecan log rolls, and I actually happen to have some on me. This is our new packaging. This is our new, I call this our Big Daddy log roll, and I called my grandfather Big Daddy. This is the largest one we make. It's 10 ounces, and this is a trucker special. A lot of truckers will literally eat this in one sitting while they're driving. So if you come up with a name that we end up choosing, I'll send you a case of those 10-ounce pecan log rolls, or whatever size you want of our famous pecan log rolls.
Fantastic. You know, my cardiologist had a heart attack when he saw that. No.
Well, I always say
them.
treat yourself. I know we're in the candy business, and there is no way I'm going to say that this is necessarily a healthy product, although pecans are full of antioxidants. But everyone needs to treat themselves.
Now, wait a second. You keep saying pecan. Now, that's like my friend's wife in Oregon says, but I grew up in Texas, and we say pecans.
We say pecan, yeah. Yeah, the number one pronunciation in America, I just saw a poll. I don't know who took this poll, but 70% of Americans say pecan. So I don't know if that means you're right or wrong. There's no correct pronunciation. There's actually 4 ways to say it.
Yeah.
Can you come up with the 4 ways to say it?
Pecan. Pecan.
Pecan.
Yeah, I said pecan. Or did you?
Pecan.
Pecan. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Then pecan.
Oh.
Then pecan, and pecan. Wait, pecan.
Pecan.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have to change the emphasis on the syllable, but there's no correct way. And my grandfather used to say, depends on who's buying.
Yep.
If he was up in New York City selling to some influential buyers, he would say pecan, and then down in South Georgia, which is where we're from, I've always said pecan.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is going to be a very informative show.
There you go.
Well, you'll learn things
Valuable
that you
knowledge.
never imagined. And, well, one of the subjects is going to be very interesting, near and dear to my heart today. And then you've got the drinking bird and just all sorts of stuff. And I can't imagine a kid of any age, and I'm still a kid. I still
Right.
have, I
Kid at
drive
heart.
by. Yeah, I drive by a Stuckey's, and it's almost like the car. I don't know what y'all have done to all the automobiles in the world, but it's just like it wants to turn in.
Yeah.
Pull
Yeah.
off and go into Stuckey's, and like we talked one time, come on into Stuckey's, bring your memories, and that's what you have every time. Every time I pass a Stuckey's, it's a flashback to when I was a kid.
Well, thank you, David. And that's what I've been really pushing that differentiates us from other stops on America's highways, is that we come with memories, and we've been on the interstate highway system since the beginning. We were founded before the highway system, before Eisenhower passed that in 1952. We were founded in 1937 as a roadside produce stand selling pecans in Eastman, Georgia. So we've been around a long time, but just like America, we've had our ups and downs, and the company fell out of family hands for decades. So that's why we've had a bit of a downward trajectory, but we're on the upswing. And I've been with the company since November. My father took over the company before me, but he retired and largely left the company without anyone managing or running it for quite a while. And so I've come in, and my father and I are very much in touch, and we are rebuilding the brand. And so we're looking to have more stores and more candy products, and just bringing back what was wonderful about not only Stuckey's, but the Great American Road Trip, which I think is headed for a revival.
And what does everybody think about the Great American Road Trip? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, I'm biased, so I'll say Stuckey's, but I just think of getting in that most of us had those station wagons with the wood sides and had a lot of brothers and sisters, and you'd pile in that car, and mom would want to stop and dad would want to make good time. And just pulling over to not just Stuckey's, but I'll give a shout out to Howard Johnson.
I don't remember seeing you in our car.
Right. And playing those fun games, travel bingo and license plate identification and I Spy. We had so much fun with those road trip games. And honestly, I think kids today, my kids included, are missing out because they've all got their electronic devices, or they're wired up to their own individual screens with their own movies. So you don't even get to fight about what movie to watch. Those are great consensus building, collaboration skills that you learn in the back seat of cars.
Name the car in front of us and the taillights, from the taillights, we'd play that all the time, my older sister and I. And but you say road trip to me, and the first thing that comes to mind is Route 66.
Right, the Mother Road.
Yep.
I was just on Route 66 not too long ago. What I love about Route 66 is it is nationally protected. It is designated under the Historic Preservation Act, as it should be. So just like a historic home is designated, Route 66 is designated. And the special thing about Route 66 when you travel on it is all the people you meet. Everyone recognizes this is something really special, and you're riding on history.
That's right. And do you know why Eisenhower put in the interstate system?
I do not.
So we could land planes on it in case we were attacked.
My father did tell me that. See, this is such an educational show.
It is.
Learn all about American history. And that revolutionized the road trip. That, along with the post-World War II economic boom, people were getting on the road to travel. Air travel was prohibitively expensive back in the day. The Airline Deregulation Act in 1982, I hope I got my date right on that, but it was the early 80s, completely revolutionized people being able to domestically travel by air. But before then, you couldn't get a family of 5 and go on a vacation and take an airplane. It was only for businessmen.
And then you got to the other end, and you had to rent a car, and
That's right.
That was expensive. But
All of
it's travel, and we do a show called a Classic Car Show, which Stuckey's is going to be involved in.
We should be. We should be classic car lovers and Stuckey's. We go together like pecans and log rolls.
But when we're doing those, and we give a little history class on Saturday mornings during the Classic Car Show, and that's the fact that today, it's a shame, our history books and what kids are learning, they pass over a lot of things, and one of the most important things is what cars have meant to the United States and trucks. I mean, they have made the United States, and they've made Stuckey's by pulling off the side of the road and taking trips and all of this, and it's a shame that our textbooks today don't realize and really tell the story of the car. And we did learn, though, this year how important trucks were when you were short of toilet paper.
Absolutely. Yeah, and this is actually National Trucker Appreciation Week. And I didn't even know that. I post on social media now. I'm learning Instagram and Twitter and all of those forums, and I frequently post about truckers, and I had a picture of me with a trucker and said, "Thank you, trucker." And then all these people retweeted and said, "Thanks for recognizing Trucker Appreciation Week." I didn't even know that. For me, every week is Trucker Appreciation Week. But they keep America moving, and all this talk about frontline heroes and thank a healthcare worker, absolutely we should. So grateful for our healthcare workers. But just don't forget the truckers while you're giving a nod to the healthcare workers, because they're out working long hours, subpar wages quite often, and it's grueling. And they sleep in their trucks. They take showers in truck stops, which are nice, but sometimes
it ain't like being
sometimes
home.
It's not that. It's a hard life.
Oh, it is.
And what they do is critical to our supply chain economy. We could not function were it not for truckers.
What's interesting is there are more and more women getting into driving, which I think is fantastic.
If I can say a slightly off-color word, those ladies are kick-ass.
Yeah.
I've gotten to know some of them, and they are amazing. Fun fact, so many of them they live in their trucks, and they're nicely decorated. A lot of them have pets to keep them company, usually a dog, because I don't think cats would travel too well in a truck. But so many of them have dogs, which I've always thought was so fascinating. So you'll look in their truck, and they'll have a little dog bed, and it looks lovely. They've often decorated them really well. So it's cool to get to know some of the truckers, and I really take the time to go out and talk to them, and I'll hand them a free pecan log roll and just say thank you.
Oh, that's great. One thing that we discussed not too long ago on our Classic Car Show, and we had a trucker on, as a matter of fact, and we were talking about what they did, and and again, back to nostalgia and the good old days, and shortly after I got my driver's license, I was on the road some, and the courtesy on the roads from the truckers was incredible. And if you were wanting to pass them, they'd flick their lights that it was okay, or you'd blink your lights that you were about to pass. And one thing that I guess today they don't make cars anymore with turn signals. Very seldom do you see people use turns.
Nobody uses them.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, we
So
were talking about the courtesy that truckers always had, and back a long time ago that citizens had with truckers in using their turn signals, or flashing their lights when they were coming by and so forth.
Now, when I was a kid in the back seat of the car, what me and my brothers would do is we'd do this and get the truckers to honk.
Oh, yeah.
So much fun.
Yep.
The other thing is CB radios.
Oh,
Who remembers
yeah.
that? Breaker 19. And my
Breaker.
brothers and I have 3 brothers and a sister growing up, and we would get on that CB radio, and if we got a trucker talking to us, that was just the bomb. We would get so excited, and we try to learn all the lingo. I forget most of it now, but I remember we had handles.
Yeah, and if you were in the rocker, you were between 2 truckers.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, it was. Yeah, I loved it, and and we are so sophisticated now that I think we've sophisticated ourselves out of a lot of fun that we had. And that's a shame. And, it's one of the first things I taught my two boys was how to change a tire. You're going to have a car. You're going to need to know how, if something happens, you're going to need to know how. And today, at 12 years old, I lived for getting a car. That was all I was focused on, was getting a car, And today, kids don't even want to drive. I have a nephew that he didn't start driving until he was 18, and more and more are, and I can't imagine that. That's all I lived for, was to get behind the wheel.
Well, we are starting to see that trend in the other direction with COVID, and there's been so many terrible things that happen with COVID, but you also see times of crisis in this country. We are a country that rolls up its sleeves and we innovate and we're resilient and we pivot, and that's what's happened. We've seen so many people figure out how to adapt and even thrive with this new environment that we find ourselves in, and part of that is we are seeing more people taking road trips. They can't fly by plane for a variety of reasons. Now it's getting more expensive and it's not safe. You risk getting infected. And so, and big cities have higher risk of have higher rates of COVID-19. So there's all sorts of reasons why people are getting in cars and visiting these small towns across America as opposed to the big cities. And that's where Stuckey's is. We're in Cuba, Missouri, and Anahuac, Texas, and Baghdad, Florida, and Somerton, South Carolina, and Old Fort, North Carolina, and Mapsville, Virginia, and I could go on with these small towns, Yeehaw Junction, Florida.
And you brought up COVID-19, so what all did you have to immediately change in sterilization and I remember Stuckey's is always extremely clean walking in.
Yes.
But with the virus and all, I'm sure you had to make some changes.
So we are working, like I said, I've recently taken on the company, which has been a little sleepy. It needs some revitalization and some rebuilding and some rebranding, and we've got our work cut out for us. Some of our stores are fixer-uppers. None of them are corporate owned. They're all franchise operated. So I'm in the process of first visiting every single store. We have 67 locations, and I'm about 2/3 through. It has been a little challenging with COVID. I can't get around as easily as I would like to, but I'm still out there on the road visiting the stores. But frankly, some franchisees are doing a better job of keeping their stores clean than others. So we're in the process of revamping our franchise program so we can institute some more quality controls at the corporate level. But I can say, in talking to the individual franchisees, they're all taking precautions. Some of our stores have had curbside service. Quite a few have instituted apps where you can order online and then you just come in their store and you grab and go with your food order, so you don't have to linger in the store. So we're seeing a lot of those preventative measures being implemented.
Stephanie, when we would go in, I don't remember eating that often at a Stuckey's.
That's right.
But, okay, so you all have now incorporated a full menu or a menu? Or?
No, and this is an interesting story about my grandfather. He did not want full-service sit-down restaurants in his store for a variety of reasons. It certainly adds cost, but the main reason was he wanted people walking around his stores and looking at the candy, looking at the novelty items like the Dunkin' Bird, and spending money on souvenirs and candy and pecans. So he didn't want people sitting down. He would have a fast, really, back in the day we called it snack bars. I still call it snack bars. So he would have things like hot dogs and pimento cheese sandwiches and a basic offering of food, but it was always fast food. But before there was really fast food, right? But he wanted families to have a quick stop, families on the go, to be able to pull over, use the restroom, get some food, and have just a fun experience while they were at it. So Stuckey's was not just a stop, it was an experience.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing that you at some point you incorporated, because going back in my memory, I didn't remember you all being affiliated with a gas or
We've
gas
always
pump.
had gas.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. For some reason,
You're not the only one. Actually, I just read a really good book on the history of the Great American Road Trip. Rich Ratay, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, R-A-T-A-Y, and it's called Are We There Yet? And he said in his book that we didn't have gas. So I had to reach out to him and say, we've always had gas. But that is a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. And he has a couple of pages about Stuckey's, which I very much appreciate. So, yeah, we've always had gas. And back in the day, it was Texaco. It was Stuckey's in Texaco. We used to have a sweetheart deal with them. Unfortunately, we lost that deal when my grandfather sold Stuckey's in 1964. And so now only a handful of locations will have Texaco. We have all sorts of gas brands available. But every single pull-over Stuckey store has gasoline. And hopefully in the future we'll have EV charging.
And what?
EV charging for electric vehicles.
Okay. We won't even go into that.
We're
but
trying
anyway.
to innovate. So just so you know, we are forward focused at Stuckey's, and we're looking to make sure we're accommodating consumers of the future, not just the present and the past.
That's interesting. You never, or I never think about that really. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for an electric car or not. But
well, that's fine. You know, that's why there's lots of offerings. You know, speaking of road trips, I meant to give a shout out on Route 66. I pulled over recently on my last Route 66 trip to this wonderful place, Round Barn, which is a round barn. It's outside of Arcadia, Missouri, and they shaped it round because all the winds would come by and would tear down a lot of the other barns, so the wind wouldn't do as much damage apparently to the round shape of this barn. And it's been there for almost, it's well over 100 years. It's a beautiful historic place. It's got a great gift shop. I'm all about the gift shop, and it's right down the road from Pops 66, which is the largest collection of vintage sodas. So any kind of old root beer that you might like, or soda pop, they've got over 700 different varieties of classic sodas. And it's right there on Route 66, and they have a giant, the world's largest soda pop bottle out front. So you can go get your picture taken with the world's largest soda pop bottle.
Interesting. I never heard about that.
Yeah, I'm all about the road trip. You know, that's Stuckey's mission, is we make road trips fun. So we really want people to not just stop at Stuckey's, but explore America along the highways and byways and back roads, and take the exits while you're taking your trips.
You know, just like you mentioned about flying, and we seem to always, particularly in the past 15, 20 years, we're always in a rush. We got to get there. We got to get. But you know, there's nothing more beautiful than taking a road trip and getting to see the United States.
Yeah. We have a great
see
country.
the USA in your Chevrolet.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah.
You know?
But we do. We have such a wonderful country.
Oh,
and
it is.
It's not just the big cities. I would say that pulling over at Pop's Soda Pop and looking at all of those wonderful sodas that really tell the history of this country, that's just as much of a cultural experience as going to the Museum of Natural History at the Smithsonian.
Now, do you want to learn something else?
Sure.
Do you know what Dr. Pepper is?
Something funky. Cardamom, cumin.
No.
I don't know. It's a funky spice.
You remember what the old Dr. Pepper bottle had on it?
I am trying to remember. I just remember the logo. No, I don't remember what was on it.
A clock.
A clock.
And it was the three numbers that were on it were 10, 2, and 4. And do you know why?
That's when you take a break to drink a Dr. Pepper?
Well, Dr. Pepper, if you remember the old westerns and stuff on TV, there was always a traveling snake oil salesperson, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And there really was a Dr. Pepper. And he and my grandfather got to be friends. And this was when my grandfather was very young. And my grandfather always said, someday I'm going to have a Dr. Pepper plant. But Dr. Pepper, the reason it was a snake oil type thing was that its primary ingredients is prune juice. And if you drank a Dr. Pepper at 10, 2, and 4, you'd be very regular.
Keeps you regular. Oh my gosh, they don't advertise that now. I don't think that's much of a selling point anymore.
But that's where it all came from, out in West, in near Waco, Texas, and then when Coke carbonized, and put carbonated water in their product, then Dr. Pepper shortly thereafter followed suit, and but that's why the old clock was on all the Dr. Pepper bottles, 10, 2, and 4.
It's not on there anymore, though.
Nope.
Took those off. I love those origin stories.
Oh, they're beautiful.
And that's similar for Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola started out a bit of a snake oil salesman type as well, where it was supposed to cure all sorts of ailments.
And it had Coke in it.
It had cocaine in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was definitely a picker-upper.
Yeah. I don't know, but if you say so, whatever. But anyway, it's a real plus and a real delight to have Stuckies with us.
Thank
you. Hopefully what we'll be doing in the future is more and more nostalgia and just talk about, I think this is something that we all miss, and during what we've been going through. And by the way, I want to take 2 seconds. I don't generally politicize by any stretch, but I'm ashamed of our media. I think what Trump did yesterday was probably one of the most important documents signed in the last 50 or 100 years. And I think everybody in the media should be touting the fact that peace has come to the Middle East for the first time, and we'll see how long. Hopefully it'll last forever and ever, and more that will sign on to it and continue. And I'm embarrassed with my profession that more people didn't acknowledge the importance of it. And I haven't traveled to the Middle East mainly because it was just not safe, and now it will be safe, I think. So
I have actually stayed away from the news lately.
Yeah.
It's just been
rather
lot
depressing
with what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Certainly want to see peace in the Middle East, so I might need to follow that. But yeah, I have been staying away from politics lately. I am focused on what I think is really uplifting in this country. I think right now there's so much divisiveness, and I just want to focus on things that unite us as a country.
Let me ask, do you have locations in California?
We used to.
Okay.
But very limited. Like the one store I know we had, I confirmed with my dad, was Barstow, California. We've always been based solidly in the Southeast, and then expanded to the West, like Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, and Oklahoma, Kansas. Today the furthest west we go is Kansas and Texas.
Well, let's get serious for a second. And you just said the stores are franchise owned.
That's
correct?
right.
So I'm interested in getting a Stuckey's location. Are they still available?
They are, but it's on hold right now because we're in the process, like I said, of redoing our franchise program. So we're pulling that together. So in very short order, we will be in a position to start franchising again. But for now, my focus is on improving the look of our existing stores before we really start expanding. But we are in very active talks with a variety of people who are experts in franchising, including lawyers. And I'm a lawyer, so I can't say damn lawyers or anything like that, but we definitely need some legal support and making sure our franchise program moving forward is a really solid one. So we're in the process of doing that. Give me a couple months, maybe even less than that. I was up late last night working on that, actually.
So can we be the first to announce that Stuckey franchises are now available at some point?
Sure, and if people reach out to me, there are some options that can be pursued immediately that we can discuss offline. The easiest thing right now is that we have active B2B or business to business accounts, and we have over 200 locations all over the country that are currently selling our product. For example, we've got over 100 Ace Hardware stores in the Midwest that just signed up to carry some of I've got our classic box here. It's not completely full. I just grabbed some different sizes of our log rolls, but you can buy into our yellow box program and get some of our Divinity, our pralines, pecans. We have a whole line of flavored pecans, and of course our famous pecan log roll. So that's an easy starting place if you're interested in getting engaged with Stuckey's. Is if you've got a retail operation, we are more than happy to offer you wholesale pricing, and we've got a catalog. So
I'd almost
just reach
venture
out.
to say that you would furnish the B2B a sign outside that we handle Stuckey's products or something.
Well, we're working on it. Again, we're building the program.
That's great.
So before you can run, you got to crawl, and so we're in the crawling, hopefully getting to the walking stage. But I have been designing signage. I've got a wonderful brand consultant who's helping me. We've rolled out this new logo. I say maybe new in air quotes because this is actually the original Stuckey's logo. So we're going back to our original look. This is, you can see this is the logo we were using, which is more of an 80s logo, which is actually a little dated now. Hard to believe because the 80s seemed like yesterday, but we're going back to, this is really like the 1950s logo, 1960s.
Wow, that's great.
So some of y'all may recall seeing that. And I like it because from a marketing standpoint, this is more visible. We want, what's the number one goal? Is to get people pull over.
Sure.
So which one can you see better? I know this one is smaller, but the lettering is smaller. It's not as, I call this the chubby logo. This is the logo that's been snacking on some log rolls. So
Yeah, you go against, I know you're an attorney, and we talked about that a long time ago, but, you go against the saying on attorneys that, how you can tell when an attorney's lying, and that's when they're talking, or when they open their mouth.
Ouch.
But you've gone against all of that. I know you're telling the truth, and the truth will set you free. So, I think that Stuckey's is, I think you're doing a great job of bringing it. I don't want to say bringing it back. It never really went anywhere. It just had a little hiccup, and now it's back.
I actually have been, I thought of this last night. I should post on social media. We're still here. Where have you been? We've always been there. We're just there in less numbers because we lost the company. It was sold to another company that then got bought out in a hostile takeover by a Chicago railroad conglomerate. And they didn't understand the brand. Many of the stores were shuttered during that time period. We lost over 200 stores.
Wow.
Yeah, so the brand really suffered. We lost the candy plant, we lost the trucking company, we lost the billboard company, everything except for a handful of stores and our distribution center. And so we're rebuilding, but at least we've got a solid base, and the strongest foundation we have is the brand. And people's memories of the brand. That's what we've got.
That's the most important thing. And you can't destroy memories.
You can't.
And when a memory puts a smile on your face, then you're going to share that with your kids. You're going to share that with your grandparents or your parents that are riding along with you or whatever, and talk about it. You'll see the sign, and then that's all you'll talk about until you pull in.
Yeah.
And that's Stuckey's. And that's what you all are known for, memories.
Yeah, I get hundreds of letters, emails, messages. There's so many different ways people can reach me. And they share their memories of Stuckey's every single day. And I start every morning reading those memories, because it grounds me, but it inspires me at the same time. It just reminds me, like, this is why you are doing all the hard work you're doing now. This is why I invested my life savings into buying this company from my father and his former partners and rebuilding it. It's because there's something so special there, and I want a whole new generation of people to have those same memories. I want to tap into people who have those memories, but we want to build more.
Sure.
We want the company to not only survive, but to thrive.
Let me ask, basically nobody knows my name, but what's it like to have a name that is known nationally? And oh, come on, you can't be really,
Yeah, Yeah, it's kind of funny. I really think I had a great upbringing because we're from Eastman, Georgia, and had I really grown up in Eastman, I think I would have been a big fish in a small pond. But when I was a kid, my dad got elected to Congress, and he packed up and moved the whole family to Washington, D.C. So it was kind of like the Beverly Hillbillies, only it was the Georgia Hillbillies going to D.C. And I was plunked into a D.C. prep school, and none of those kids knew Stuckies, and kind of made fun of my Southern accent. I remember the principal pulled my mother in and said, "Your daughter has got to quit saying yes ma'am and no sir to the teachers, because that's not what we do here." And my mom said, "We are from the South, and my child is going to say yes ma'am and no sir." But all that's to say, I grew up largely in an environment where it wasn't a known name in Washington, D.C. And so I didn't get that as much. Then I came back to Georgia for college and law school at the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. And then I would start getting it occasionally. But frankly, then the brand had started to suffer, so it wasn't as well known. The funniest thing I get fairly frequently is when people recognize the name and they'll say, "Are you part of the Stuckey's family?" And I'll say, "Yes, my grandfather," yada, yada. And then they'll say, or I'll just say, they'll say, "Oh, we love the Stuckey stores. My boyfriend's family is the Stuckey's family." You know, I'll get that all the time. People will say, "Well, so and so, like I know my second cousin on the other side of the family says she's related to the Stuckeys, or my childhood friend was the heir to that family." And I'll say, "Oh, well, who is that person?" And it's not part of my family. And so I rarely correct them.
But you know,
I rarely correct them because I'm like, why should I? Hey, I am flattered if
that's a
some Michael
compliment,
Stuckey out there who is completely not related to me wants to say he's part of my family. I will claim you.
Please hold.
Especially if you keep getting people to pull over and stop. So, I'm fine with that. So, and then a lot of times people will just share their memories, and that means the world to me. I never get tired of it. You can tell me pulling over at Stuckey's stories all day long.
Please hold. You know, that's another thing. Again, I bet if somebody sent in their favorite story about Stuckey's and we read it on the air on one of the shows, I bet they would get at least a pecan roll.
Yeah, and you know what? Next show, I'll bring some of our swag in. We have some bumper stickers. We have not just the pecan log rolls, but we also have pralines and divinity. And I've got bumper stickers and stickers, just stickers that you can stick on notebooks and bicycles and stuff. So I'll bring in some of our swag, and happy to offer those as prizes for your listeners.
I think that'll be fun.
Yeah.
And
I love giveaways.
Your favorite story, your favorite Stuckey story.
Hey, and if you have photos, I absolutely love it. Someone sent in a photo of their grandmother at a Stuckey's the other day from the 1950s. Totally made my day. Like, I was literally tearing up looking at that. It was amazing. I love those little gems and those finds. So if you got any family archives, films, pictures of stopping at Stuckey's, you will definitely get a log roll and some swag for that.
That's neat. And a
hat. Oh, I forgot. I'm wearing a hat.
You're wearing a hat, yes.
I don't know if my eyes are really showing that much. I got to look at the camera more, but I got my Stuckey's hat on.
Well, that'll get you into any Stuckey's.
There you go. Yeah.
So
I will let you know when I go to Stuckey's, I pay full price. I do not come in and say, I want some free stuff, because it is franchise operated. So technically we don't own that store. It's owned by the franchisee. I have a lot of respect for that. So I'm not going to go in and get some freebies, but I do usually call and let them know I'm going to be there. Sometimes I just show up, though. I'm a mystery shopper.
Well, I think that's good, and that if they've got a problem or an employee problem, then you can casually point it out or do whatever you do. But I would say Stuckey's is just fun.
Thank
and
you.
I would imagine that your employees exude the same feeling of it's fun to work here, and it's we meet a lot of people, and it's just fun. And I think you can't say that about every business.
Yeah, some of our staff, I had such a great time when I did my Route 66 journey a couple months ago, and then I went to Kansas after I went through Missouri, stopping at all these fun places. We have a Stuckey's in Doolittle, Missouri, right off of Route 66. But after that, I went to Paxico, Kansas. One of our original stores has a beautiful blue roof that people recognize, and there's only a handful of those original blue roof stores still there. The guy who was at the cash register had been at that store for decades. And he said, I love it here. He said, people come in all the time and they share their stories, and it's just happy. It's a happy place. And again, that didn't just make my day. That made my week, month. That was such a fun experience going and visiting with those folks.
Why do I have a feeling you couldn't wait to get back and tell somebody that story?
Right? Well, I'm like, let me take my picture with you, and we posted it on Facebook, and I said I had so much fun visiting the Paxico, Kansas store.
That's super.
Yeah.
That's absolutely super. Stephanie, we're about to have to close out the show, but what have we left out anything?
Well, I would
other
just
than
say
inviting everybody in.
Right. So more to come. We've talked about moving forward. I love just having a conversation. So definitely solicit viewer feedback, listener feedback. If you've got some thoughts about what you want us to discuss, we're happy to do that. And we've also talked about, here's a little teaser. Next week, we will talk about the Duncan Bird. We'll talk about some of the fun souvenirs and kitschy memorabilia that you can find at Stuckey's. We'll talk about saltwater taffy and what are the origins of that. I think origin stories like the Coca-Cola and the Dr. Pepper are so much fun. So we'll give some origin stories, and we'll start eating some candy on the show too.
Oh.
I could use a little morning
little
sugar
lift.
boost, a little treat yourself moment. Always important.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun, and I appreciate the fact that you're open to the people that are listening and a giveaway or whatever. And this show will be on Wednesday mornings at 9 o'clock. Right?
Yes, I got the look. I was running late this morning, so I will be on time moving forward. I missed the exit, but now I know how to get here.
But, it's going to be a continuous thing, and the idea is as we pick up listeners to the show, is that they can pick up Stuckeys for the show.
Absolutely.
And we'll come up with some kinky ideas about what people can do while they're listening. And the last thought I'm going to pass on: Stuckeys has been so successful, and so successful with your gift portion of it and memorabilia that people can buy and keep, that there are a number of places that have copied Stuckey's, and there's no better compliment than to be copied.
Well, that's a good way of putting it. Sometimes the competitive side of me kicks in, and I'll see some of those other locations and think, darn, they're stealing our ideas. But you're right, and really no ideas are really new ideas. They're just being done in a different way. And so it's good to have a competitive landscape, especially if you're the consumer. That's what you want. So we invite that, and I think we still have something very special to offer road trippers, and so look forward to seeing you on your next road trip.
Well, with that being said, we're going to have to bail out and get ready for our 10 o'clock show, which is Pete Macca. And that's one thing, and this is one of our shows that we talk about and talk with veterans. And I bet somewhere down the road, Stuckey's would, if you can show that you're a veteran and have served our country and served it well, I would even help foot the bill for that, a cup of coffee or whatever, because our veterans are, and we're losing so many of them today.
So true. Well, the other thing I would like to start doing, I know time is short, but I'm trying to be more thoughtful about our procurement processes and what companies we do business with, and I'm definitely looking to see our companies veteran-owned. And in fact, a company that I met with for about 3 hours yesterday, and I'm hoping to use them for some consulting work with our logistics system. It's run by a disabled veteran. So
that's great.
When he said that, I perked up. And so we definitely would like to support our veterans in a variety of ways, and what better way than to support veteran-owned businesses. So if you're a veteran-owned business, think you've got something that might align with Stuckey's, by all means, reach out to me. You can reach me via our website or sstuckey@stuckeys.com, or find me on social media at @StuckeyStop. I'm pretty
Great.
easy to find.
You are.
And LinkedIn. I get a ton of LinkedIn messages, so anything sort of business related, feel free to message me that way.
Stephanie, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
We'll see you in a week.
See you next week. Thank
Thank
you.
Take care. Bye. You're listening to America's Web Radio. Stay tuned for more, and Pete Mecca and A Veteran's Story. We'll be back right after a couple of messages.